Hi, Marco.
Hey Miriam, what's up?
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Did you have a good vacation?
Yeah, great vacation. It's awesome. Puerto
Yeah,
Rico was great. 10 days. I had a good time. The sceneries were out of
I'm so
control.
happy. You
Yeah,
deserve the
man.
fucking break.
Oh man. It was well definitely needed. It was a good vacation.
Good. Good. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to hear that.
It's been ages, man. I feel like we haven't seen each other in a long time.
I know it has been a long time.
Maybe we set up something for next week. Go someplace Tuesday or something.
So down. Yes.
So you're like a pro at what I'm teaching today.
Well, and the thing is every single time that I do one, it's different. I'm confused by something else.
All
So
right. We're gonna try to clarify all of that today and make sure that we're on the same page with this. So you don't
right.
have that confusion moving forward.
I just lost one yesterday because the guy would not go high enough.
Oh, really? You did it,
Yeah,
you did an escalation clause or something?
I did an escalation, but
Yeah.
it was for 4,200, and I told him you got to go. He was like, "I'll go to 4,400." I'm like, "You got to go higher." The guy that got it went to five.
Oh, wow.
So, oh
It's all
well. At
about,
least he sees that I was right. Like at least the client sees now.
yeah. Yeah, you tell them the first time and they're like, maybe not. And then they lose it and they're like, okay, next time, next time.
Yeah, and then he's like crying to me this morning. I'm so agitated that it didn't work out. I was trying. I was like biting my lip. Miriam, don't say I told you so.
Oh man, that's rough. All right, well, we're gonna give this about another minute. To the rest of you that are here, it's good to have you. If you can put in the chat what office you're from, so I got an idea of who we have, I'd appreciate it. Um, and then we'll get cranking here in a second. The launch yesterday was really cool for Lauderdale. It's gonna be a great office. I feel like it's gonna be nice. The location's really good. Let's see. So we have Ruth, Ayla or Ayla. Did I say that right?
It's Ayla.
Palmetto Bay in the
Yep.
house, coming from the deep south.
Yep. I've been in Cutler Bay, born and raised basically for the most part.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Palmetto Bay is growing. A lot of stuff happening out there.
The other team I really like, so
Oh, deal.
did not mean super athletic.
All right. Give it about 30 more seconds. I see people are starting to log in.
Yeah, the link was just sent in the WhatsApp chat about maybe 3 minutes ago.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah,
Well, that's part
so
of it.
that's probably why people are just now joining in.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, they're trying to utilize George's Zoom account for other trainings so that they can keep a better track of it. So that's probably, why it took a little bit to get it out there. But at least we got my objective for today is to at least have the people that are on really understand contract to lease and not have any questions moving out of it. We should all be doing it the same. So it doesn't matter the branch that you're with, it should be pretty much standard across the board. So if you're doing something different from what I'm teaching today, please, stop me and let me know so that I can, rectify that and maybe talk to the branch managers in those areas. Because what we want is to make sure that you guys have one way of doing it, and that way there's no confusion moving forward. I'm going to share my screen as well. So let me see where I had that. Probably here. Let me see. You guys see the contract to lease form up? Just let me know if you're able to see it so that I know.
Yeah, I see. Looks like your the email where it says the CTL on it, the invitation.
Oh, you're looking at an email? Hold on.
Yeah, we're looking at it. Looks like your email right now.
Hold on. Let me go back. Stand by. Okay, what about now? You see a contract to lease?
Yes, it's up there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, let me minimize this a little bit just so I can make it fit better. All right, so before we begin, thank you for joining today. I know that it was a little bit last minute for some of the chats, and that you just got the link. The contract to lease, obviously, like I said, we're trying to get it to where everybody does it exactly the same. So no matter where you're at, you should be able to do it exactly the same. There's not too many of us on the chat, so it's a good opportunity for me to ask. Where is it that most of you are getting stuck so that I can maybe concentrate a little bit more time? We'll just go in order, or if you're just new and you just wanted to catch up on it, that's fine too. But if you're finding yourself a little bit stuck in a particular area, I'd like to know where so I can concentrate on it. So you can unmute and just, basically give me ideas.
The issue I'm having and where I'm getting stuck is number 5. And I'm driving, so I can't, I'm just like doing this off memory.
Yeah,
But what to check where it says the paragraph to deposit? Because it
got
seems
it.
like every rental that I have, it's like they want to do something else with it. So I never am quite sure how to do that.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. I'll definitely make sure I pay attention to that as I get to that area. Anyone else?
I haven't done one at all before. This is my first time, well, I just started in real estate, just good to mention.
Okay.
And I have a few rental leads already, and I haven't had time with how fast they're coming in to even sit down and, be able to do a training. So I was able to squeeze this in today. So this is going to be just, a lot of information taken.
Amazing. So that's good. I mean, you're going to be getting there soon. So that's good that you're catching up with this.
Awesome.
Anyone else? Okay. And again, guys, as I go through it, I'll stop from time to time and give you an opportunity to ask a question. So let's just go ahead and get started. First off, this is what the contract to lease looks like. You're going to find this in Transaction Desk. You're also going to find it in your LIR forms. This exact copy that I'm looking at and that you're looking at is the sample, and that's found on lircloud.com under Florida forms. So you can basically look at this, download it. In West Palm, I tell my agents, make a copy of this and laminate it. So that way, when you're doing a contract to lease, you have it right next to you, or at least know where to find it. So that's where you're going to find this on Transaction Desk and on LIR Cloud. Transaction Desk, when you create the transaction for a rental, it'll be in your forms. Okay. And it'll be under contract to lease. So we're going to jump right into it. Section number 1. Very self-explanatory. There's the parties that are involved, landlord and tenant. The only question that I sometimes get from this is that the person listing the property, landlord or landlord's agent, they may have it slightly different than what's on property appraiser. So they may have owner of record is Marco Hernandez, but then they have it under an LLC under property appraiser. My advice to you guys is to always go by what's on the property appraiser website, because that's who they have as the current owner of the property. All right. Now, in the only situations that would be maybe different is in the case of a sublease, but that's not even part of what we're doing here today. This still has to be owner of record. So property appraiser, look it up. That'll be the owner of the property. That's who goes under prospective landlord. I've also done in the past that if they want it under an LLC, or if it's under an LLC, I'll put the managing member of the LLC in parentheses. So I'll put, I don't know, Lifestyle LLC, parentheses, Marco Hernandez, because I always want someone to be responsible for the actual lease. I get that it's under the LLC, but I always want to put a name and a contact to it. Tenant is obviously your tenant. If you have multiple tenants, you're going to have an opportunity to add additional tenants later. And that's going to be under number 3. But so prospective tenant, all you need to do is put your main person that you're dealing with. And if they have a wife or if they have a husband or, a kid, single mom, it's gonna go under number 3 for anybody additional. Okay, you guys are agreeing to execute a lease agreement no later than a specified date for the property described. Now, this is also a question I get asked a lot. How far should I let a lease, or how far in advance? Or yeah, if the contract, the lease is executed today, how many days do I have to do the actual lease? That's actually agreed upon between you guys. Now, what I like to do is if I know the dates already and I know that it's going to be solidified, I like to do it within 3 to 5 days. I like to get the lease done. Now, there's going to be times where maybe you do the contract to lease, and for whatever reason, the lease gets extended, people go on vacation, the other agent, all that kind of stuff. It's okay, as long as it's an agreed upon date, okay, that you're going to have the lease executed. And for those that are new, there's the steps to this process. You get the renter, as Ayla and Palmetto Bay mentioned. You're gonna get the tenants, you're gonna get the leads, you're gonna show them places. Very first step, get all of their information, make sure that they're well vetted as far as income, their background, all that. And then contract to lease. Contract to lease is basically your offer for the property. Okay, now after that, and that gets executed, then you have the opportunity to do the full lease, which that is usually done by the listing agent. Okay, so the process is contract to lease, walkthrough, and then closing or final day of walkthrough where everybody gets paid. Okay, that's sort of the steps in that process. Any questions as to this point or to this point?
Yeah, Mark,
Anything at
I have
all?
a question.
Yeah.
Under the tenants, I didn't know that you only had to put one over there and then the other one later. Like I've been working with a couple and I put both their names on the main line. So if you put only one name on the main line and then the other name under additional tenants, do both of them still have to sign the lease?
So
Like,
if you
or
have
the offer?
the adults, any adults that are on the contract to lease have to be on the lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have to sign the offer as well then.
Yeah. It just gives you more space. There's sometimes that you get a couple and then they got, their parents or whatever, and this gives you additional space to put them. But anybody that are adults should be signing the lease. All right. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to section number 2. This has been very sticky, guys. With rentals and what do we do with escrow, and does New World charge us or not charge us? Is there fees or are there no fees, all that kind of stuff. And it's actually something that I think is pretty easily explainable, but I just think that not everybody's doing it the same, and that's the issue. So when it comes to deposit, okay, my thing is I always try to get the landlord and the landlord's agent to hold the escrow deposit, because truly we don't have, New World doesn't really deal in holding rentals. They'll do it for us. They're now going to charge you $50 to your tenant to hold it. But if you can get the landlord or landlord's agent to hold the escrow deposit and get a receipt for that, I think it's better just to put it on them. Now, many times they're going to tell you, no, we don't have an escrow, because they also don't want to hold escrow. All right. So in that case, you can deposit your rental escrow with New World. You just have to give them the heads up that it's coming. Okay, so you just get a hold of New World, let them know it's coming, whether it's through email or a call. They'll charge your tenant $50 if you're not someone that has closed with New World in the past. In the past would be probably within the year and a half. So if you've had a closing with New World within the last year and a half on a sale, they shouldn't be charging you the $50. In that case, and if that happens, you just let your branch manager know, and I'm sure that they'll be able to work things out with New World. Okay, but for the run-of-the-mill rental, and if you haven't done a sale or a closing with them, I'm not talking about rentals, I'm talking about sales, then they are going to charge the $50 to your tenant for holding it, because it's not really something that they can monetize. They can't do anything with it. They're actually not really supposed to be holding rental escrows. They're just doing it, you know, as a favor for us, but again, they're tacking that fee on with it. So it's either two choices. Landlord or landlord's agent holds escrow, and or you can deposit it with New World, pay the $50. If you've done closings, you don't pay the $50. Now, some of you may have relationships with other title agents. That's okay. If you have that in place and they're willing to hold your rental escrow, not a problem. You just have to make sure that, you know, that they're able to do that and that they're okay doing it. Any questions with paragraph number 2, deposit? Any questions with that? That seems to be one of the ones I think that sticks the most, that people, you know, get, or one of the ones that I feel like they get stuck the most. But like I said, if you know your options, I think it's pretty simple. Okay, I'm gonna move on then. Section number 3 is property address. That's self-explanatory, is the address that of the property that there's gonna be rented, the property, whether it's gonna be furnished or unfurnished, and whether or not the property is used for only residential purposes and occupied by the tenant and the following people. This is where I say you can put extra people on that are gonna be living there so that everybody's aware of who's gonna be occupying the premises. Okay. Now, Miriam, to also clarify with you, if someone wants to be primary on a lease and not necessarily want to use the wife, that happens, you know, like a wife or a husband may have a 400 credit score, but the wife has an 800, and it's agreed upon by agents that the person going to be qualifying for the lease is going to be the person that's more vetted to do so, then they're the only ones that you want to are going to have signed the lease, because they eventually have to go in front of, you know, an HOA maybe or whatever.
Okay,
Now there's going to be times that the HOA says, well, everyone that lives there has to apply. Well, then you can't do that in that case. But in the case that there's no HOA, the landlord I can be a landlord to a property and say, I want to rent it to you, Miriam. And I understand that you know, let's say your husband doesn't have good credit score or whatever, then I don't need to utilize him on the lease. I can just utilize you as a responsible party if I wanted to, as long as it's agreed upon.
okay, got you, thank you.
Okay, all right, excellent. Section number 4 goes over our lease term. Remember that in the lease terms, to always, the day you start, if you're doing a yearly lease, not to put the same date on the year that it ends, because then that'll make it 366 days. That's the only real mistake that I ever see there. Other than that, it could be seasonal, it could be 6 months, 4 months, a year. Just make sure your dates are accurate. So you double check those dates before you submit it. Money due before occupancy. So section number 5 is the most important section of the whole contract to lease, because it really breaks down what we're doing here and what's happening. I want to make sure you guys are hearing me okay. So everybody's hearing me okay, right?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. Section number 5, when you're on the MLS and you're looking up rentals for your clients and you see something that says first last security, right? So all they're telling you is that they want first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit. Now, 2 things I want to talk about here is that in section number 2, where it says deposit, okay, and it says 1 month rent is your deposit, that's an escrow deposit. That's not the same as a security deposit. So I want to make that differentiation for you guys, because an escrow deposit is not the same as a security deposit. In other words, in section number 2 of the contract to lease, what you're leaving there is good faith, a good faith deposit that you want the place. So you're basically putting a month, okay, ahead of time, saying, look, I want the place. Here's 1 month of payment to show you that I want to proceed with the lease. Okay, that's not the same as saying a security deposit. So I just want to make sure you guys understand what the differences are. The security deposit is something the landlord's going to collect in the case that the house, you turn it back in and there's things broken or holes in the wall, and he wants to utilize your security deposit to pay for those repairs. Okay, that's what a security deposit is for. Okay, any questions with that part of it? Okay, great. Money due before occupancy. Okay, as you see here in the sample, it says 3 months rent. Okay. When you do add these things up, all it's asking you for are the actual rental payments. So if you're adding in a pet deposit, if you're adding in, I don't know, cleaning fee, that does not need to be part of your rent. Your rent is basically your first month's, your last month's, your security deposit. Those are the 3 months that you're putting up for rent. Okay, you don't need to add all the other ones. All right, that's number one. Number two, on in section number 5, it also tells you, and it breaks down first month's rent plus applicable taxes. Now, if you're doing a yearly rental, chances are you're not charging a tax. That comes into play more with seasonal. Okay, I think seasonal right now is 12, 13%. And that can be added into your monthly rent if you're doing a seasonal rental for 6 months or less. Anything over 6 months, you're probably not charging a tax. Okay. Advanced rent for month, if you're doing an advanced month of rent, then that would be applicable there. But in this case, it's not, as in the sample. Okay, so if anybody wants to pay advanced months, they can do that. You'll see that in a very hot market or a hot property when someone says, hey, I'm gonna pay you 6 months up front and give you last and security. Well, then now you have a place to put month 2 through 6 because they offered to pay 2 through 6 on the first 6 months up front. Last month's rent is self-explanatory. That's the last month you're going to be living in the property. Many times when you pay last month's rent, if your person is going to be moving out, they'll just do what's called living out their last month. So they won't make their last payment because last month's rent was already paid. Okay, so they'll oftentimes call you and say, hey, I paid last month's rent, so I don't actually owe rent this month, right? And you can confirm that with them. Now, security deposit, again, that's something that's held by the landlord in the case that you damage the property. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about these other ones. Security deposit for association. Some of them will charge them in an HOA. That's if they have a lot of areas where they have pools or clubhouses and things like that. They may want an additional security deposit. Many times, the landlord would cover that. But in the case that they don't, you have a spot for it. Pet deposit, that's very common. Typically somebody with a pet is going to be expected to pay $250, $300 more or less for a pet. That's something that's normal. And again, you have a spot for it. And if that's the case, and then in other is where you can put things like cleaning fees or, stuff like that. So you have a few extra boxes. Now that's section number 5 explained. Does everybody understand what's going in section number 5 now when we say first, last, and security? Everybody understand that? Okay, one thing I didn't touch there was the dates. When we talk about what we're giving them as a deposit in section number 2, that good faith deposit, that's usually done as soon as they accept your contract to lease. So that you're usually giving up right away. Okay, the first month's rent. The other ones, the next 2 months, you're not going to give until walkthrough, which is why it says walkthrough date here. Try to put the actual date of the walkthrough if you can and if you know it. Okay, that's always better. So those are the dates that those are due. So if someone says, hey, I need first, last security, do I need to give it all of it right now? The answer is no. I need 1 month right now. As it gets accepted, I'm gonna need another 2 when there's time. Ruth, you have a question?
Okay, never mind, because I think that you just answered it. The escrow
Okay.
amount is going to be whatever good faith amount that you give. I guess that's going to be credited in the end, right?
Right. The good faith deposit in section number 2, or the deposit, is going to be equivalent to 1 month's rent. And in this
Got it.
case, it's going to be the first month. Okay. So Miriam, this is where you were asking. It says the paragraph 2 deposit will be credited as follows. I personally do it exactly as a sample. I put first month's rent, and I always attribute first month's rent to that deposit in section number 2. You will have times, again, where you'll have an agent that says, I want I want it to be last month's rent that goes towards the deposit. It doesn't matter, guys. Is the reason why they're giving you all these options. All they're telling you is pick one. You can't pick them all. So the only mistake I've ever seen here is that someone will mark off all the boxes because they feel like since they've already put in first, last, and security, that they should mark off all of them. That's not the case. You're just marking off how the paragraph 2 deposit is going to be calculated. In this case, we're going to do it towards first month's rent. Okay. Any questions with that?
So let's say you give it to New World, right? So
Yeah.
your client makes out a check to New World, but then what happened in my last rental was New World used that to pay both of our commissions.
Okay.
They distributed from that money to pay both of our commissions, even though the CTL said first month's rent.
That's fine, because in any rate, the landlord still has to pay 1 month's worth of rent. You're just, all we're doing is we're telling the landlord that commission just went towards that first month of rent, or the first month's rent went towards commission. It's six in one hand, half dozen in the other. If you think about it, if you're the landlord and you've got to pay the realtors 1 month rent, do you really care whether it's first month's rent or last? I mean, you really don't care. It's still coming out.
Right, but like, so why not just check a box like right for agent's commission? Like, why not
Because
be more direct about it?
you
Why
can't
it's
put
so-
agents, because you can't deposit agents' commissions as escrow.
Okay, got you.
That's why we're putting first month's rent.
Okay.
Sandra, do you have a question? No? Okay. All right. And then guys, it says if it's left blank, the deposit will be credited to first month's rent. All right, so if in the worst case that you left that blank, it's basically defaulting to that it's gonna go towards first month's rent. Okay, but I would rather you guys fill it out and actually put first month's rent. Section number 6, tenant's gonna pay for the total rent of the lease term. So again, you're not adding in any pet deposits, any cleaning fees, nothing like that. It's asking you for, if your client has an annual rental, what is 12 times whatever the monthly rent is? That's what goes there. Okay, so if it's $1,000, it's $12,000 that goes there. Okay, that's what it's asking you. All right. Tenant will also pay total taxes on the rent when applicable. Again, that's only going to be for 6 months or less. So typically not applicable unless you guys are dealing with a lot of seasonal rentals. Tenant will also pay rent, including tax, okay, on a monthly basis. You want to try to get these leases to start on the 1st, but it can start on any day really, as long as it's agreed upon. For the dates, I've had leases start on the 5th. I've had leases start on the 10th, and everybody's in agreement with it. It's okay. And whether or not they're going to pay it on a monthly basis or not. And in this case, obviously, it says the first day of, if left blank, of each month in the amount of 1 month's rent. So that's basically saying month 2, you're going to start paying your rent again because you've already paid first months ahead of time. Section number 7 is pets, whether it's prohibited or permitted. That's self-explanatory. Section number 8, smoking, same, self-explanatory. And then we go to the second page, utilities. Now, the only hiccup I see here from time to time, and it's sort of mentioned here, is provided by condominium or HOA, is whether or not who's actually paying for cable, internet, things like that. If your tenant is going to pay for the utility services during the lease term, connection charges and deposits for activating the existing utilities, this is saying what they're not going to be responsible for. What they're not going to be responsible for. So that's what goes there. So if an owner is saying, hey, I'm going to pay water, I don't know, I'm going to pay water, then you put water there because your tenant's not going to pay for water. Okay. Section number 10, maintenance. Landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property, except for, I usually put AC filters here because I think a tenant should be able to at least change the AC filter if it's in a reasonable place. And the landlord is responsible for the maintenance and repair of the property outside of that. So that's what I usually put there is AC filters. Section 11 just talks about if there's an association that the tenant agrees to pay a non-refundable deposit for applying for such, and they have 5 days after execution of the contract to lease to apply. So just stay on top of this. I mean, I think you guys do a phenomenal job. I know that my office, the agents do a great job of staying on top of HOAs and making sure people get approved or at least apply on time. Just pay attention to that. You don't want it to basically linger. So if you've got a contract to lease accepted already, I would already start pulling HOA docs and making sure they have everything they need to start applying, because you don't want to wait for the last minute on that. Okay. Also, if your client is not approved for whatever reason, we all know that this agreement is null and void. I mean, you have to be approved for an HOA in order to live there. So in the case that is not, then the rent or the deposit will go back to your tenant. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Additional terms, that's if you guys want to make any amendments to this. You know, you have to make it to the lease form also. So you can make, you know, some people have things they want to add into a lease. I don't know, cameras or something like that. You know, the cameras are responsibility of tenant or whatever you want to add in, that you have an area there that you can put it. It has to get translated into the lease when it eventually comes. Background, that's section number 13. So it talks about background, credit, and reference checks. If the landlord determines the tenant's background, credit, or reference check is not acceptable, the landlord may terminate this contract by refunding the deposit to the tenant. Thereupon, the parties will be released from obligations under this contract. I've been asked before, okay, so let's say the person has a clean background check, their credit's good, they have references, but the landlord all of a sudden says, you know what, I don't want this person, I don't agree, and I think that their background or all this is unacceptable. Can they break it? The answer is yes, but they have to have a legitimate reason for breaking it. Like, it can't just be, oh, I don't like this person. You know, it's not a legit reason for breaking this. Okay. So it has to be something that the landlord can justify in those three things, whether it's background, credit, or reference. Okay. Failure to perform. This one actually has happened. It didn't happen to you, Miriam, but it happened to someone that I speak to quite often. I forget who it was, but basically contract to lease was done. Everybody agreed on everything. And then it was time, a person gave the money, actually gave the first month's rent. And then after that, person went ghost. And so my agent couldn't find the person. We couldn't find anyone to sign anything. The landlord was ready to do a walkthrough. I wonder who it was. I wish I would have known, or I could remember, but anyway, bottom line was the person came forward like the day after the walkthrough was supposed to happen, and we were able to salvage it. But guys, if your person signs a contract to lease, okay, and they, especially if they put forth the deposit, they're in a lease. Like, they're basically accepted a lease and they've accepted terms of a lease. So I know that there's agents out there that say, and I understand, your buyers are not, or your tenants are not getting places, so you're putting in 3 or 4 offers. I would do the same. However, as soon as I get one accepted, I would put all the other ones on ice. Do not go under contract with more than one at a time. Okay? Do not. All right. That's my advice to you. If someone else gives you an idea different, I think you're rolling the dice, but I mean, maybe they have a way that they do it. But as far as for me and my agents, I always tell them, put in multiple offers. I don't care. But as soon as you get one accepted, you need to put all the other ones on ice. Okay, and just wait. All right. Okay, that's pretty much the contract to lease, with the exception of just signatures that go underneath it. So is there any place that you guys feel like you need further clarification, or are there any other questions?
No, you pretty much covered everything.
Yeah, I think that what helps is if you guys download the sample and just review it. And then, you know, as you get into it, and some of you are already, again, dealing with a lot of leads, as you start doing your contract to leases, my advice to you is to keep it consistent. Miriam, I know you mentioned you've done it a few different ways. That might be because the other agents are asking for it that way. But as far as consistency, I think you guys, if you keep it consistent, then it's always going to look the same. It's going to be much easier until you run into that person that says, hey, I want the paragraph 2 deposit to go towards security. Okay, fine. You know, no problem. I wanted to go towards last month's rent. Okay, no problem. You can be fluid with this, because the other good thing is that you still have a lease to sign. This is almost like the pre-party to the real party, which is the lease. Okay. Another thing that I want to also mention is that, is it necessary to have a contract to lease in a rental? No, it's not necessary. If someone has something on the market, the property is available, let's say starting tomorrow, and you took your tenant today to see it, you guys can enter straight into a lease. You don't have to have a contract to lease. The contract to lease is more so when you have a little bit of time and you know, you've got several days to go. But if you guys are going into a place where it's going to be available in 2 days, you don't necessarily need the contract to lease. And then in transaction desk, when it comes to your checklist and it asks you for a contract to lease, just put the lease twice. So put the lease under contract to lease and then put it again where it says lease to cover yourself. You don't need to have a contract to lease to get into a lease. Is that understood by everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. If anyone has any questions at all, I'm more than happy to answer them. It doesn't have to be related to this. Maybe you're stuck somewhere. I'd be more than happy to answer. Ruth, you have a question?
I do have a question regarding the background report.
Okay.
I don't know if you actually went through that in detail, but if you are offering, do you actually, as the agent, run the background report and credit, or you allow the landlord to designate that?
Great question. There's going to be times, and you're going to see it on the listings, that they're going to want the background check to be from a certain company, or they're going to charge you a background check. If they're going to charge you a background check, then I would prefer that they just do it one time through the listing agent and through the landlord's agent and whatever platform they're going to use. Most of the time, especially with the sensitivity of information out there and data, they're going to allow people to go onto a site, create a login, pay for it, and then you just turn over the report. So one way would be that if on the MLS it shows that they're going to charge a background fee, ask the agent on the other side, hey, are you going to be doing a background? Because I see that they're charging them for it. Yeah, we are. This is the company that they're going to use through the HOA. Fine, great. Use that. In the case that you don't see anything, then you can do rent spree or any other background check, you know, landlord station, any other places you can utilize. And in those cases, you don't actually have to do it. You give your client, again, the information, let them log in, they can pay for it, they turn over the reports. Those reports are basically in a way where they can't omit anything. So when they send you the report, you'll know if they omitted something.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Alrighty, I'm gonna drop my phone number in the chat. Maybe some of you are oh, wait a minute, I saw that you asked, what if the client wants to pay an additional security? Yes, you can do that. And there are times that landlords will take that into consideration if you're willing to pay more. So yes, that's a definite yes on that. Sandra.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. All right, that's my phone number. If you want to lock it in, if you have any questions, again, it doesn't matter what branch you're with. I'm more than happy to help. Another question, do rentals need tenants to show proof of income like a rep approval to purchase? Yes. A lot of times now in rentals, they're asking for proof of income, and sometimes they're asking for 3 times a month's rent. So if a month's rent is 1,500, they want to show that your client can make at least $4,500. Now, I wouldn't volunteer that, Matang, unless they ask for it. But there are times that you will have to show proof of income. Alrighty.
Thank you, Marco.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today. And I hope you guys are all clear now and go get them people out there landed in their rentals.
Thanks, Marco.
All right.
Will do.
Take care.
Thanks.
All righty. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.